Here to tell us about how young people are handling their finances is Suzanna Baca, financial planning expert with Ameriprise Financial. Thank you, Suzanna.
Thanks for having me on.
Let's talk about the positives first. What are they doing right?
Well, millennials are actually more likely than any other generation we surveyed to say that they'd cut down on every single discretionary expense that we'd talked about across the board. So that's very positive. We also learned that millennials are, in fact, saving to their employee-sponsored retirement plan, so like a 401k. And in fact, 57% of them are contributing up to that employer match. So those are all very good steps. Those are good starts for millennials.
Right. Now, do you think this generation, they lived through the financial crisis in very formative years? Do you think that influenced their desire to save or their understanding of financial issues?
Well, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that say millennials are more conservative with their outlook about money, but in our survey we also saw there's a couple of places that their behavior could be a little bit better if they really want to prepare for the future and have the lifestyle that they want.
Okay, so let's get into those. That's the negatives where they weren't quite as strong in their financial planning.
Exactly. So millennials told us that despite the fact that they have good intention, they actually have a very hard time saying no to unnecessary purchases. So a little bit of a discipline issue. The other thing that we learned is despite the fact that they're contributing to an employee-sponsored retirement plan, they're more likely than other generations to reduce those contributions, to stop the contributions, or to think about taking a loan out. We also found they're less likely than other generations to have a monthly savings plan, and that's just a critical element of any good financial plan.
Right, and when you say a monthly savings plan, do you think they should be automatically setting aside a certain amount a month? Is that your recommendation?
Well, that certainly makes it easier to have auto enrollment or into the 401k, or to completely quickly defer a certain amount into another savings account. Whatever makes it easy, it should at least be systematic, so that it's a planned part of your budget, not an afterthought after you've gone out for lattes and dinner and said, oh, okay, I've got a little bit of cash left in my pocket.
I see. All right, well, I'm glad you brought up lattes, because that is a really sort of familiar piece of advice young people are given a lot. Don't go buy a latte every day, put that money aside. Do you think that's a realistic strategy for young people today? Will that lead to real financial security?
Well, anytime you cut back, it can be positive. And what we found in our study is that most of our respondents of every age said they were cutting back on eating out, entertainment, and clothing and shoes. That's a hard one, right? But ultimately, while that is a good start, that didn't add up to as much as it did when our respondents said that they were cutting back on bigger ticket items. So some examples there are your housing costs, vacations, a car payment, things like that, where if you can save on that, you're going to get a bigger bang for your buck than just having the latte, cut out of your budget.
Right. I think that's good for people to remember to focus on the big picture too. All right. Well, great. Thank you for sharing your results with us.
Well, thank you for having me on.